to Test This, the podcast designed to help software testers understand risk and adopt new testing solutions with ease and confidence. Your host is Mahamadou, a quality assurance consultant with over 10 years of experience across multiple industries. In each episode, he'll talk to different experts and learn from them about how they test.
Today, I am excited to welcome Kishore Duvvuri. Jay is a leading voice in test automation, widely recognized for his hands-on expertise in building modern frameworks from scratch. He's an experienced senior test automation engineer, AI-driven testing, microservice and CICD integration, web and API testing, framework builder and blogger. He is a content creator, community leader. He has a GitHub with over 50 repositories. He blogs, shares a lot of tips on LinkedIn. He is also a microservice testing expert. He focuses on end-to-end strategies for distributed systems, such as contract testing, performance check with K6, and also DevOps integration. So Jay, thanks for being here and sharing your experience.
Thank you, my pleasure. Thank you, Mamadou.
You're welcome. So in this episode, we'll be talking about testing with microservices. First, we'll ask about this journey in testing and how we got into test automation. Then how we accelerate test automation to minutes. Third, how we scale testing with CI/CD on microservices. After that, we'll talk about how we implement acceleration beyond scripting. And then we'll share tips to grow as a tester. So without further ado, let's get started. First, Jay, can you talk to us about your background and how you got into test automation?
I started my journey into test automation from the base. I was before a mainframe developer who is like more into this COBOL PL1 programming language, DB2 CICs of that mainframe. So then I moved into mainframe testing by choice, and then testing caught my eyes. Like I was more interested in testing as a career. So then I switched back from development to testing for a while. And in 2016, that's in 2009 to 2014-15, I was like doing manual testing and testing different systems with mainframe and all. But then in 2016, I jumped from mainframe testing to normal testing, which is manual testing of distributed systems, and then to test automation. Started with Java Selenium, programming language with Java, but now I'm doing with Playwright and different other tools, Cypress, Web.io, and so on, robot framework. So it's all like now into JavaScript and TypeScript, a little bit of Python, or in Java a little bit as well. So I transformed, from this manual to test automation over years. It was out of my choice and curiosity, understanding how the systems behave, where they break, how users truly interact with applications. A lot of manual testing. Then, but then I can think like when it comes to the scaling of systems, manual validation is good, is important, but then this could not keep the pace for modern release cycles. So I kind of transitioned into automation to like reduce a lot of manual tasks. But still, I like manual testing, but then the automation testing is so important here. So the journey in automation was very interesting and exciting for me so far. I enjoyed a lot, like sharing tips and so on. How I see automation is from writing scripts to designing framework, automation test cases to test strategies, running the tests to engineering the quality systems. It kind of became quality engineering more on the automation perspective.
Yeah. And usually developers, they are seen as high profile and compared to QA. So was it easy for you to switch from developer to tester?
I kind of like having these two mindsets, like having a developer mindset and the QA mindset. So it's like when I'm trying to construct things, for example, I write automation, which is all of code as well, or like I developed some code using COBOL back in the days. But like when you construct something, at the same time, equivalently, I had the mindset of like, what if this breaks? Like, let's break this one and see how it turns out the results. So it's like both mindsets are good in a way to apply on like suitable levels of like development and testing.
And you also said you work in test automation for many years. So how was it before AI? Like, how did you spend your time working as a test automation expert?
I'm still learning. I'm a specialist in test automation, I would say. I mean, learning every day. But then, what triggers me is that like a team or like when you are doing like repetitive tasks or like when like there are a bunch of tests for regression, for example, like 1,000 tests. So you don't need to like automate everything, but you gather the or grab the most critical ones which are like required or like a showstopper ones or like recent defects which you got, and then kind of automate those things basically to make the automation value added to your project. That's the approach, I would say.
And to what mistake people tend to do when they start in test automation?
Actually, it's not in a like a mistake or something, but usually it's just that most of the time people are not aware of test automation. Like there are teams where I worked where uh, in my previous projects. There are like teams who are not aware of test automation that much, or like there are places where manual test automation is sufficient. So it's just that automation mindset or engineering mindset you should have in this modern release cycles, especially with AI coming into picture. So the mistake is not like a mistake, but this I would say like people are not aware much, and then. For example, there are like a lot of codeless tools. So people also like think about like going with the codeless automation, with the code automation, like Java Selenium or like Playwright with TypeScript, JavaScript, or Playwright with Java, or Cypress with JavaScript. Well, people prefer codeless tools like robot framework, like with basic keywords, for example, or like Tosca uh, as a codeless tool, for example. So there are multiple things. That is one, you have the awareness of automation, interested towards automation, and kind of treat automation as a part of quality and development. So that kind of mindset gives you the scope and room for automation and interest to automation. So, and also like the testers, like for example executing 1,000 test cases for a release, for example, takes like a lot of time, where that's where automation kicks in and like reduce the time for them. So I think like these are pretty much not mistakes, but I would say like yeah, things to ponder for test automation.
Okay. And now you said you have expertise in Playwright. What's so special about Playwright? How does it help you better than other tools?
uh, yeah, the Playwright is like very good one. I have a blog article written on that compared to like Cypress. Way long back, I wrote that blog. But then I also have a blog like comparing all different tools. So what I see with Playwright is this: it's like very fast. For example, if you compare with Cypress or Selenium, just an example. Like if people adapt tools based on their projects and their requirements. So every tool has its own advantages and features. But then Playwright is like little different because if you say Selenium, if you're doing automation with Selenium, for example, clicking a button and doing hard weights, like explicit weights, I would say, not hard weights, sorry, using explicit weights. So for example, you want to like click a button, for example, with Selenium. So usually you have a browser, and the browser will call the browser driver, can be Chrome exe or Firefox or Microsoft Edge, whatever. And then the browser driver in turn opens up the browser, and then you go into the browser, and then you have an explicit wait, and then the button is clicked, for example. But then with Cypress, it's way too fast. So Cypress using JavaScripts only run inside the browser, which makes your tests faster. A lot of time is cut there. But then coming to Playwright, but then you don't have these await options with Cypress. I was working with Cypress. You have these dollar signs, and it's like a nested kind of functions, calling a function inside the function with Cypress. That makes sometimes confusing. Like where are you in your VS Code, for example, in the particular step? Like where are you? Like you're lost sometimes. But like with Playwright, is that you have auto waits feature enabled. It supports multiple language bindings. It's like very fast. Back in the days, it was using just test runner or Ava or Mocha, but now Playwright has its own test runner, supports multiple reportings. And JavaScript is like a cream, or like TypeScript being a cream of Playwright for the front-end test automation, especially the front ends are built on Vue.js or React.js or Angular. So in a way, Playwright leverages your automation too fast, but then with this, and Playwright has this feature of code gen, for example. So like you can literally open code gen and it opens up a new window browser for you, and then you can do actions manually and it writes the code automatically generated for you, and you can take the code and write the test. And now the Playwright locator, so if you don't have data test IDs, still you can grab locators with Playwright's accessibility IDs, like get by role, get by text, or get by placeholder, and so on. Like you have multiple options with Playwright, and it's so neat and clean. Like you can build up a framework using page object design pattern. Playwright supports that. So there are multiple advantages of Playwright in this way compared to other tools and we use for front-end test automation, I would say.
Okay, thank you. So you mentioned many things about Playwright. Talk about CodeGen, the locator, page object model. That what makes you automate faster, 2 minutes?
Start this way. Like back in the days, I was like, if I was to create a framework for a project or like for the community to share, I picked up this Swag Labs website, for example. So writing like a couple of tests and building up the framework from scratch, like it used to take me like 2 weeks, like 1 month, or like 35 days, more than a month, like 30 to 40 days, for example, to build a framework back in the days. But this with the new AI tools, where I used this Bolt, for example, it's an AI agent. I used Perplexity, Quen, A0, Manus IM. But Bolt is like outstanding. You can try out that. All these tools are good. With these, like my building up the automation frameworks came from days to like minutes, for example. But it will not give you like the perfect or accurate answer. But then you can take that piece of code and you have to like do the patchwork. Like, okay, this fits here, this fits here. You have to reorder and rearrange the code which it gives you to arrange it in a proper order and build up your framework. But then it's kind of good if you know the things like how you build the frameworks. I think the AI tools like writing plain tests or without a framework are also very good with these AI tools. So that's one thing, like I cut minutes from days to minutes. The second one is like parallel execution in automation, which always like a time savior. When you open with Playwright is another feature. Like to answer to your previous question, like this one more important good feature of Playwright is like you can set the workers. There's a concept called workers, and you can open multiple sessions with Playwright, like 5 to 6 browsers at a time, incognito browsers as well, if you want to. Like it's good for messaging apps. When you work with messaging apps like Teams or so on, want to check this, like user A sends a message to user B, or attachments and user B sends to user A, and like if you're in a group like 6 people communicating together, if you want to test that kind of scenarios, with multi-sessions. Playwright is a good one there as well. So yeah, coming back to our question, so parallel execution is one other good thing. Using AI as strategic test layering. So like for example, you asked microservices. So when you test with monolithic, it's like regression, smoke, sanity testing. So you have like more regression suite in monolithic, but in microservices, the amount of UI regression testing, like amount of UI testing, I would call, not UI regression, but you can call in UI as end-to-end journey tests. So these end-to-end journey tests are like minimal UI tests you can keep, and then you run them like very few tests, and then the subcutaneous layer down the line which is a layer beneath, you run more like contract test, API test. So I think using this strategic test layering, depending on the project, will also cut you down the time from a lot of time from days to minutes, I would say. And scaling testing with CICD is a good one. So like you have whatever tests like unit, API, UI. So you combine them and push it to commit to the CICD and check like how it's accelerating your test automation or leverage your test automation. Yeah.
Okay. And when you save like 70% of your time of manual work, it's no longer needed. Like, how do you enjoy your return of investment? Like, what do you focus on instead of building script as a test automation engineer?
Yeah. So if I compare previously, like last 2 years before, it was like taking a little longer time to like come with the locators. So I have to like manually use the locators, and then I have to like write the locators by myself, writing the XPaths if they don't have data test IDs, or that kind of writing CSS or XPath locators was a bit time taking, and then building the framework. So you use constructors, you use some object oriented programming concepts like inheritance or abstraction, and then like fitting those constructors and inheritance in page classes like parent class and child classes, and using the methods reuse those methods from parent class and the parent class as base class, and putting objects like, you say for example, writing a page, a login page equal to new page, for example, that you kind of use those objects, fit into those fixtures in Playwright. And there are a lot of work to do, coming up and building this framework, and keep the locators separately so that whenever a new functionality or something changes, you don't need to like come and visit the page and change the locator there. When you maintain the locators in a separate file, that's how I maintain. So whenever there is a change, I just change the locator there, and then it's entirely reflected in the entire framework. So that used to take days, but now with the use of AI, right now, like if I want to write manual test cases, I use CodeGen, or like there are like some new tools called Test Companion or TestCraft, where you can write, it's like a browser extension. You can like add them to your Chrome plugins or Chrome browser, some web actions, and it will like record your actions there on the web and then generate the test cases for you, for example. Or you have a similar thing for API testing as well, where you can use, when I use ChatGPT, but then there are other tools as well. You can use different AI tools for that. So overall, like using Bolt was my favorite at one point. Using Bolt is an AI agent, it's like building the project for you from scratch. So you kind of like save definitely time using these tools of AI.
And do you experience some flaky tests? And how do you measure them?
Yeah, the flaky test is a good question. So Usually, when the locators are like not stable, so the flakiness starts when you're doing front-end test automation. You have like iframes or SVG locators. So if you kind of have enough of them, it's like a challenge. And when you don't have like data test IDs mentioned in your front end DOM, for example, on the front end. So you kind of ask the developers, or you build yourself, like if you have the front end code access, you can also like put the data test IDs and see by yourself, check by yourself. So that's a good practice. So if you have this kind of data test IDs, which is good, then the flakiness reduces. If you don't have the data test IDs, and if you're like more if you're writing long XPaths, for example. So back in the days, I used to do, when I'm writing with Selenium, I used to write like long XPaths, and the CSS locators were also a little bit lengthier. So in that case, flakiness always hits you. Sometimes it's there, sometimes the element you can't find it, sometimes it's like that. So to break that, the best practice would be maintain data test IDs, or like make it more accessible in the sense that you use more accessible locators, accessibility locators for Playwright, like get by role, get by text, get by placeholders. These are like now the trending locators, I would say, which also like reduces a lot of flakiness. Yeah, in terms of test automation, yeah.
Okay, based on your profile, I saw you earned a certification in AWS, Azure, and you also talk about CI/CD pipeline. So does this mean you have to become more DevOps engineer as a test automation engineer?
No, I mean it's up to you. It's good if you are a test automation engineer and a DevOps engineer. That's like a rare skills. Like you're combining both two skills, and then it's a really a good demand if you do that. But then to start, for the testers, they don't need to be automation engineers, but definitely yes, you need to know the basics of CI/CD. I kind of created this automation of CI/CD, like the very basic ones. So anybody can look into that, and they can learn it. So I would say it's all about like have you just to learn about the YAML files, or a little bit of research of how you do. But with the AI tools, I think if you like giving the prompt, you get everything, and then you can learn it easily and apply it to yourself. And it's definitely a need for the testers to learn this CI/CD, and to like not only run locally but to integrate with the CI pipelines for the releases. So it's an important thing. It helps you integrate seamlessly into your delivery pipelines. So I would recommend the testers to learn. It's like you don't need to be a pure DevOps engineer. Just like the basics, if you learn, it's very basic, minimum things, very basic things. If you learn, then that will be like really sufficient.
Okay. And is it also important for testers to understand API or instead of just focusing on the UI?
No, it should. Depends on the project. Like usually, if you join a project, and if you see the scope of the project, because some project they have a demand for front ends only, and then you go there and test on the front ends. In some projects, you're in the back end, but in some projects you get the chance of getting both. Get your hands on onto both, like front end and back end, and database and whatnot. Like it depends on your project requirements. So it's always good to know like the back end APIs and the front end as well. But it depends on your choice. Like at that point of time where you're interested in. It's good to broaden your scope of like having hands-on back-end testing and front-end testing. So start with like pick it up with one kind of testing, one UI testing, for example, and then scale yourself and make it broader to API testing in the back-end, contract testing, performance testing, for example, and there's security testing as well. So it's all about your interest, and then automation of this front end and back end. So yeah, and performance as well. So it purely depends on your interest and scale it up accordingly.
Okay. I also check in your profile and it says you're an expert in microservice. Can you explain to us what is it for junior testers who doesn't know anything about microservices?
Yeah, sure. So basically, these microservices usually. So, for example, if you take a monolithical way, it's like a three-tier architecture. You have a client, business logic tier, and a data management tier. So, something you write on the front end, you search. For example, you do a search result. It goes from the business logic layer, go to the database, picks it up, and displays you to the front end. So this is typically how we see. But then microservices is different. You know, you have like it's integrated. So for example, you're on a Facebook. You have a site message chat. You have like adding people. Like you have this login functionality. So everything, for example, is a microservice. So for example, you're on a chatting and you wanna like chat with your friends. So that's kind of it's a microservice altogether. So it's like there, and it's like a separate system, but altogether when you combine, it's like loosely coupled. We say like it is an independent system under a lot of other independent systems. It requires attention of testing separately than a monolithic way of testing. So it's altogether it's an own independent service, I would say. So in terms of that, the testing differs from a monolithic way to this kind of microservices testing. So in monolithic, you have this smoke, regression, and sanity testing, for example. So if you want to implement the same kind of terminology, it will not kind of it's a little different. So you have like unit you kind of have like the unit tests, component tests, contract tests, integration tests. The contract tests like are agreed. It's like basically those are API tests checking the communication between two individual microservices, like one being a provider and consumer. So I have like integration tests. Like again, these are API tests and UI tests. So for example, I'm sending a message like saying hi to another friend, and then the other guy logs out. So sending a message to attachment or like logging out, altogether like 2-3 different microservices there. So when you integrate all these 3 different microservices and check the integration on the UI and the API, for example, so that's like integration tests of microservices. And the functional test being the UI test, we call it them like end-to-end journey tests. So end-to-end journey tests can be API, we call them as subcutaneous tests. So it can be API, it can be UI, but basically the end-to-end journey tests of UI are like very basic, very minimum. Keep it less, 10%, but keep the API test maximum. And then there's a performance test, there is test in production, like when kind of create an environment for yourself internally and then for the client. And then you kind of like not release it's like kind of called canary testing. You don't release the entire software to the client, but release that particular feature or part, and then when you get the confidence, you release it accordingly. So and then it's like the post deployment test, so which is test in production. You have this application monitoring, real user monitoring the system, and like pre-deployment and post-deployment tests. You have like you have so for example, I say smoke test, regression test, sanity test for new features in monolithic, but here it is like smoke test, basically end-to-end UI, API journey test, performance test, real user monitoring, synthetic user monitoring. Once you deploy a bunch of people monitor the performance of the application and the scalability, which is performance again. So there are like different types of testing levels involved in microservices testing. So for the testers, I would say you can have a look on my blog, which I had for this, kind of get your own understanding. But I would say it's not too tough. It's easy, but it's just like how you reorganize your test based on your individual microservices. Yeah.
Got it. So we've talked a lot about scripting. Now let's talk about AI beyond scripting. So, like, how do you use AI in your day-to-day? Like, other than scripting, do you use it for generate test cases?
Yeah.
And what tasks do you assign to AI?
So I use AI for like generating test cases, manual test cases to start with. So I get these manual test cases which are way better than what I can write myself. Sometimes you pick it up very fast. I mean, like sometimes it doesn't give you the right ones. But it does. Like you can rely on it as a collaborator. AI using the testers using AI is like a friend as a collaborator, which is very much needed in this new age of AI, which is really important. But then it like gives you the not the exact when you give the prompt, not the exact solution, but then you can get a lot of it. You have to reorder yourself, like whether it's giving the good one, exact one, or like shall I modify it, or like this is not sufficient for my requirement. Should I like make my prompt more clear, or even though my prompt is good, sometimes it throw you the same repeated solution. Like you ask a question, it give you a solution, and again you ask a question, a different question, it gives you like a same solution. So you should like play around to understand AI first, like how it's just about the prompts. So once you like get in there, like make sure like clean your prompts and then get the solution and how exactly it's fitting to your purpose. If you can rearrange and reorder that kind of things, and that definitely AI is like helping you as a companion for writing, generating test cases, building up test frameworks, integrating to the CICD. That's like a little bit tougher, trickier, but then it gives you these YAML files or whatever needed. So everything you have to again manually reorder for yourself, but definitely it's cutting down the time. So I would say UI using AI is very much needed now as a tester. Yeah.
Okay. And you said you're also using tool like Notebook LM, right?
Yeah. Notebook LM. Yeah, I kind of found it little interesting. Like I had this playwright question. Like I want to, one of my friend he asked me like, hey Jay, I'm kind of want to know this playwright, and like I'm offline. Like how can you like record me and send it somewhere? So I can do it on WhatsApp or something else. But like I found this Notebook LM from Google, quite interesting one. I kind of started that. Asked a question and I had like a 15 minutes or 20 minutes recording, a 15 minutes recording, I guess. That give me, I just prompted like give me a Playwright CICD with GitHub Actions, and then it generated me a podcast for that prompt. So that it's just minutes. So if I use WhatsApp, I have to like spend like 30 minutes, or I have to pause, break, and like edit my audio. It takes like more than an hour to send to my friend. But with Notebook LLM, it's just like you record the question you want to share, like 15 minutes podcast. Record it, turn it to podcast, and send it to your friends or like your colleagues. It's way too easier, in that sense.
That's impressive. And do you think there's a risk of relying too much on AI, especially in testing?
The risk is like when you're using outside is fine, but when you're using inside a company, make sure like you don't, like when you're working for banks especially, or some other security or defense, or like some government projects, or like which where the data is like very much important and crucial, and you can't afford for a data leakage. So when you're using in that kind of companies, make sure you always be careful of selecting the required AI tools. Make sure you're aware with your security administrators in the company, and you go with that. But don't like just copy and paste everything of your company there. it's not a good idea. Yeah. So except that, everything it should be okay. Of getting like overall concept from the AI. So then you can anyways deep dive into it, and jump into and figure it out like what's best for you. So it gives you enormous pieces, and you just pick those pieces and reorder which fits your purpose. Yeah.
And what do you think will happen to those manual QA roles in the next few years with AI?
The manual testers using AI would be more smarter than the manual testers not using AI. If the manual tester is so intelligent and so fast, that's fine, that's exceptional. But then in general, if you speak, a manual tester using AI is always like a bonus, is definitely added advantage. So I would say the manual testers, it's just like not like really a hard thing. So back in the days, for example, we used to have Bing and Google, so we used to like type in Google and get like different solutions, or Reddit, or like Stack Overflow, for example. Yeah, we used to like read those Stack Overflow or something so much to find one answer, but you don't need to do that much analysis now. You just put your exact prompt, and then it generates a solution for you. Take those solutions and fit according to your purpose. Initially, when you're talking about building your own agents, building your own AI agents, writing your own LLMs, that's totally a different story. But for the moment, you don't need to do that. Just make yourself aware of the AI tools. How can they help you on a day-to-day basis for your work? And like you said in one of your questions, like cutting down the time from days to minutes, or minutes to seconds. So, for example, generating test cases, or like executing test cases, building up frameworks. So use AI, learn AI. Just try it out yourself, and build the frameworks or test cases for yourself. Yeah.
Okay, and to recap, like what skills should we focus on if we get started in QA?
Keys in the sense,
No, I mean like we talk about DevOps, we talk about API, microservices. So in summary, like if you were to start your journey as a QA today, what skills do you recommend to learn first, and what will be your learning plan?
I would like say become a quality engineer first, not just an automation engineer. Then when you're more like a quality engineer, and you can jump into out of interest, jump into automation, understand the architecture, have an interest on the pipelines. It's like a basic thing. You don't need to be a DevOps engineer again. Understand the APIs, understand the infrastructure. Learn AI collaboration, like make AI as a collaborator. Experiment with agents like Bolt, or AI tools like Perplexity, Quen, A0, Wrap, Manasian, and so many other tools like Testcraft, Test Companion. Bunch of tools out there. Just pick up the tools, learn yourself. Master the CICD. If you're into automation, master the CICD in the sense make sure you can integrate your automation tests with CICD, and you're participating, and you're 100% contributing to the running your daily release cycles on that. Think systems, like how you scale them, how you maintain your automation framework, how you can scale the systems, and so on. So I would share my experiment or my experience or like tips. You said like yeah, it's very good. Go for it, and then be a quality mindset engineer, like quality first, and then jump into automation. Pick up one language or one tool, one OS, and then build your interest on the automation like that, and then use AI, and you're good to go with that.
And when you started to learn Playwright, for example, did you use course or did you just start like this from scratch with documentation?
I learned myself like in 2021. It was like it was a bit. The Playwright kicked in like very fresh at that time. So I just picked it up. How is this tool? So I kind of wrote some GitHub issues on Playwright's team, like hey, like with WebDriver.io or like Test Cafe or Cypress page object design pattern. You won't Cypress won't recommend that, but then you use it. That's a different story. But then with WebDriver.io and Test Cafe, you can call an object. For example, you say login page equal to new login page, and then it creates an object. So you can't use that kind of thing in Playwright 2021. So I have raised a GitHub issue on that. So initially it was working. It should not work. So Playwright came with a new concept called browser, context, and page. So that's their fixtures, for example, browser fixture, for example. So they came. So you can't keep like that. So you have to create a fixture of Playwright. In that fixtures, you can dump this login page equal to new login page. When I say fixtures, browser fixture is different and test fixtures are different. So you can keep these objects in a separate file like fixtures in Playwright. So you have to use this page or browser in the braces. So that was like very difficult for me to find out when Playwright was like very new. So I raised the GitHub issues on the Playwright team. So it was working and they were like surprised, and then they eventually changed it, and they said it's we will look into it, and then they came up with this solution of a browser page concept, and altogether new concept, but it's like similar one. So yeah, I mean like I kind of evolved with Playwright from last 4 years. I've seen their test runners of Jest, and I've seen they were using different test runner. They were using locators, were like pretty basic locators, and they were using await async, but then the reporting options were very few at the time, and many things were like that. And eventually, I saw them growing very vast, very fast, very widely, very drastic change, and I really appreciate that. And they're now with Playwright MCP and whatnot, everything new with locators, so on, multiple sessions, integrating with all the CI tools. Back then it was not there. So I kind of evolved. I've seen when Playwright was new, and I'm seeing Playwright today. I'm happy I was like part of a Playwright's journey as well.
That's good to know. And did you get a chance to experiment the MCP on agent as well?
Yeah, I did. I wrote a blog on that as well. You can find my article. But then, yeah, it's good. But what I see, there are like pros and cons of Playwright MCP. So when you are using a bunch of AI tools like this, it's fine. For example, if I use Playwright MCP to build, like if you take Swag Labs, for example, source demo website. So you use Playwright MCP, it was absolutely fine. But I used the Playwright MCP in my project, my actual project. So the actual project, sometimes the GitHub Copilot is not like, is not a company's choice, or like Some companies don't use GitHub account. They use GitLab or like AWS or like Azure, for example. Or in those cases, it's a little bit difficult. But then when you also using inside the project, it always when you ask something in GitHub Copilot, it analyzes your entire folder structure and gives you and run the test based on your folder structure. It won't give you like a generic idea in general when you're using for source demo website. So the things differ using Playwright MCP outside for your own purpose, like automating a source demo project, or using inside the company. There's a lot of difference. So it's a little bit difficult or harder inside a company using Playwright MCP. But then it's not everything permits you can definitely use, but I see a little difference that, for example, I want to click something, do a set of actions for an end-to-end flow. I can use Playwright CodeGen and immediately take the code from there. I don't need Playwright MCP in those instances. So it is good, it's definitely helping, but then you should think about like where it is actually fitting for your purpose, fitting your requirement. Yeah.
It's important. And also for people looking for jobs, what project do you recommend for them to use as portfolio?
Yeah, okay. You mean experienced, or do you mean like freshers or starting just now?
Yeah, somebody is starting now and he wants to implement all those tools like CICD pipeline, AI, Playwrights. Like, do you have any example of project they can use so they can showcase their skills in test automation while learning at the same time?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I have a few guys like that asking me on LinkedIn, and I kind of help them a little bit what I can do. I always help, and so there was the one guy I helped him. He was like a graduate and interested, wanted to become a tester and automation. So I kind of helped him like with my blogs. He took my blogs and articles, also like my GitHub repositories. So I recommended him to start with Playwright. This source demo framework I built on Playwright, which is you can see on my GitHub, which is Playwright React.js, for example, and the source demo. You can search for it. You can grab it in TypeScript or JavaScript, and I also written with Playwright with Python as well. You can grab that. So I asked this guy to pick up Playwright and JavaScript first, have this manual test approach, analyze this website, come up with your own scenarios, document, write some manual test cases. And then when you write some of these manual test cases, learn Playwright and you make use of the repo or learn yourself. I also helped him in learning, and then he kind of started with his own and then tried Playwright, tried my repo, and then came up with his own scenarios. He built a framework. He created some Playwright plain tests and created page object design pattern. Also, a framework he built on, and he then showcased with me, and it was kind of interesting. He picked it up so fast, and now I gave him some AI tools. Like he picked those AI tools as well, and like cutting the framework time from minutes to like days, from days to minutes. So it's good that start with manual testing and then pick up Playwright and one language with Python or JavaScript or robot framework. You can pick up one tool and then eventually your interest to automation. Yeah.
Thank you. So that was my last question. Do you have any final advice you recommend for people looking for jobs in QA or new freshers starting to enter this job QA test automation role?
Yeah, advice is pretty simple. Like just have interest, keep on learning, and follow the market, follow the trend, how the QA is evolving day to day. Like get a chance to participate in webinars, go for webinars, spend time, people who talk about quality or different podcasts like this, and so many other where different QA topics are mentioned and QA topics are discussed. Just go for it out of your interest. Have this quality mindset. If you're there, like if you're like interest towards testing and quality assurance, then definitely you make use of AI. It generates the test cases for you, and then have this interest of building frameworks in automation. Pick up a tool, doesn't matter Playwright, you can pick up robot framework, Tosca, like many tools out there for API or automation, front end. So pick up those tools and then learn one tool, learn the language, programming language, and try it out by yourself. Use the AI, and then you're good to go in the market. That's also a self experience. It gives you, when you kind of create a frameworks on your own, right? Test on your own. It's a kind of experience altogether. So that gives you a good experience to kick off for starting your career in QA. Yep.
Okay, thank you, G. So that was a great conversation. Thank you for your time and for sharing your experience and insights. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Mamadou. It's wonderful being on your podcast, and thank you for having me, and thank you very much. Thanks a lot once again.
Okay, you're welcome. So for anyone curious, I will share the different links we talk about during this episode. I will also share your primary LinkedIn profile so they can contact you if people want to.
Sure.
I'm going to share your GitHub profile so they can see all the projects. You have over 50 project or repo in it, so lots to learn from on different projects. And I will also share your blogger profile when we see all your blogs about Playwright, Microservices, test automation. I'm going to share everything so it will be available. Okay, great. So this concludes today's episode of How to Test This. I hope you found today's episode valuable. If you did, share it with your colleagues and stay tuned for upcoming episodes. Okay, we will continue to learn from experts about their favorite testing tools and how they become better software testers. So this is Mamadou. This is How to Test This. Thank you for listening and see you next time.
Sure.